Gruff, how did you feel side went last week up in Leicester?
It was a tough evening, and certainly a bit of learning around that group. It was different for me. I took a step back and watched it from afar, so I just had a peripheral view of the game really, in terms of watching it with the Welford Road faithful, and that was valuable for me to take a step back and look at the players and not just be stuck in a laptop and living in my own moments. So that was good. But in terms of the game itself, there was a bit to like first half. We couldn't build a structured game per se around set piece and tactical moments, but around some of the unstructured stuff, the boys came alive on certain things, and there were some good moments in that realm of the game. Second half became a tough outing based on one lost line out, two handling errors, and we didn't touch the ball for about 25 minutes. I mean, the possession stats were striking, and the lessons are, around players stepping up. You don't get a second chance. A mistake at this level, you don't get another set piece on your terms for a fair old while in the game. And Leicester were masters, regardless of the side they had, at just building pressure on pressure, and it was an old school Leicester performance, the way they turned the screw second half. So even though it was disappointing, in a way, it's a good experience for some of those young lads to go through.
Who did well for you?
Again, I was chuffed. Obviously, I look at Hanno, given the background and the sort of work he's done at our level before, is an obvious one for me that he was standing out. Again, based around unstructured moments, he was one of those that came alive, looked for opportunities, shrugging defenders off, and physically looks good. We have to keep managing him, but really pleasing to see him in that. Then you see young fellas, like Mark Thomas, Daniel Suter coming off the bench again, really manning up physically and coping with areas of the game which is imperative for them to succeed at this level. So there's positive signs there, and around one or two others in the pack as well.
Was it good to see Sam on the field, given that you've got to be good at South Africa juggle, to see Sam in that environment as well with Sam Davis?
Definitely, yeah. And on a tough outing, like I said, we couldn't build any substance to our game really, but in a few of those moments where the game was breaking up, he had a couple of flashes when he's coming onto the ball, and then also some of his kicking was imperious, and actually you look at the way the first half unfolded, he put us into some good positions which perhaps our general play didn't deserve, but that's a mark of the man, the abilities he got, and we know we've got some special talents across all three of our tens, and we do want to see Sam on the pitch more, and that's why we've seen that evolution with Dan playing at 15, something we've explored with Sam in the British and Irish, and we may continue to do so with some of those players.
Gruff, do you see Hamill being in the frame for Wales come January, or come the Six Nations rather?
I think there's a lot of water passing the bridge before then, in terms of our games, our workload, in terms of two Rabo games, European games, which he's not registered for, so we can deload him there around the Christmas derbies. So he'll just be open just to build momentum in terms of his time on the field. He's someone we have to manage now for his future betterment every week in training. He won't be able to do every session, every minute, so we have to look after him in that respect. But if he continues his upward curve and gets back to where he finished with us, I see no reason why not, considering there is perhaps a lack of depth in certain positions in Wales that he could push himself to the fore.
How is Eli Walker? He's about the hamstring, but he's come back now. So how is he, and what's the diagnosis on him?
We don't know definitively. We know it's a bad tear, so it's going to be a fair few weeks until we can contemplate putting him back in action. Even proceeding his rehab on the pitch at the moment is a no-go. So it's going to be slowly but surely, unfortunately, with Eli.
How is he? Because that must be a bit of blow from the fact he's named in the side and doing his first cap.
Yeah, I spoke to him after the naming of the squad, and we were all obviously delighted, and especially someone I've worked with since such a young age and seen him achieve his dreams. And it was obviously cruelly taken away with him, with obviously no fault of his own. So speaking to him after, it was the different sphere of emotions. But he's had a few false starts now in around that national camp, but again, he's come back strong over the last 12 months, and I think he'll certainly do so again. He's a well-rounded guy who we think the world of, and we'll get him back to where he was, I'm sure.
Gruff, how does it feel for a coach like yourself when you get a challenge like the one on Joe Rees, and you see it going relatively unpunished, not even a yellow card, and knocked him out?
it is disappointing when you think that there's so many eyes are on the game from sighting officers, guys on the side as well. I think we went from, I thought the previous week, the Munster, the guys on the sides, I remember saying post-match, I thought they were excellent in terms of their contribution to help the ref, trying to create a game where people know where they stood, and some right calls were made at key times. But again, it's just, sometimes I know in the heat of the moment, the eyes go on the ball and defensive lines and so forth, but you should be seeing those sort of incidents. If not there, then after the game, when these things tend to be dealt with, and we've had the rough hand of that over a couple of times over the last 18 months.
Were you astonished that there was no action? Joe was unconscious, wasn't he? He was laid out.
Yeah, that perhaps, that it wasn't referred to, I think, is a bone of contention. But, we're not going to moan and gripe about it. Certainly Joe won't, and we are just a type of team and coaches who just pick themselves up and get on with it. So a man's game, you don't want to see it, but if it happens, you just hope it's dealt with. But as players and coaches, we move on.
Is he okay?
Yeah, he's fine. Yeah, and he's fit and considered for selection, albeit, like I said, there's one or two other young props that we've got to bring into the mix as well.
What are you expecting from the Blues?
Probably looking at their selection last week, a lot of the consistency in selection. Actually, there's not a load of change in their squad. They brought through, I think, a good group over the last 12 months or so. We're finding their feet still. So I think Phil is probably wanted to maintain some sort of consistency, and I don't think he's using the LV as a period for left field selections, and probably rightly so. But I think we've seen probably an upturn in spirits there around sort of the atmosphere of the group. The Toulon game was fantastic for them as a working group, and I think they've picked up a bit of momentum since then. I thought the Treviso win was a really good one for them against the top Treviso side. We've looked at the Worcester game, and there was a few soft ones conceded there, but a good tough physical outing, and I think with Chief going in there making a mark, it presents a good physical challenge which our players have got to respond to, because I know the Blues players are responding to that at the moment.
Griff, does it concern you, in the French press, Ian Evans is being linked with Toulon?
Yes, one of the boys mentioned that earlier, and it is concerning. We have our own negotiations going on behind the scenes, but I'm sure these players and their agents, rightly so, considering the uncertainty of the climate we are, have got to look at all their options. We can just concentrate on us and our interaction with the players, and our board are working damn hard to try and find a fit, which isn't easy considering there's probably one arm behind our back at the moment.
Yeah, are you a bit worried, Johnny? You've got 3 players out of contract, they're key players, are you a bit worried that they may sort of be forced to depart Welsh Rugby and sort of leave you really almost like half a pack short?
Massively so. Yeah, we've built, a lot of, even though we've probably shed more players than most over the last couple of years, you think of the internationals we've left, but we've always felt we've tried to create enough around the spine of the team and international players to sustain a level of competition, and we want to keep doing that, and clearly losing some world-class talent is detrimental to that. So, it's something as coaches we speak about on a weekly basis where we are, and you don't want to, but we have to look at contingencies around our succession planning and where we go if you lose 1, if you lose 2, or in a horrible scenario you lose 3, and it's a really frustrating, tough time, and obviously Scarlets have lost a biggie in the last couple of days, and we've just got to try and manage our group and just try and make the Osprey environment as tough and as enjoyable as it is at the moment, and hopefully the one that still creates competition and strives for future success.
Are you reasonably optimistic that you'll sort of retain 1, 2 or even 3 of these guys?
We will try our damnedest. I know Steve is working closely with the board and Andrew Hall, that those discussions are taking place, because we're proud of them and what they've achieved, and we want them, as they are at the moment, to be proud of being Ospreys and continue to do so in a side that's still challenging for honours at the highest level, and that's ultimately what the players want. We've got to show that we've got ambition, and regardless of salary caps, that we can manage a squad that gives them that.
Yeah. What's the vibe that you're getting? When we spoke with Aaron at the start of the season, he seemed to sort of want to stay in Wales. He appeared to be. I know a lot of water has gone under the bridge. What's the vibe that you get?
Yeah, I've always said they are great around the environment. They add so much to our group, and they've grown up in this group and have become what they are around the Ospreys, and I know they feel a loyalty and a pride about being Ospreys. But you know, there's no doubt about it, they're top players who want to keep achieving massive things. So you know, we've just got to keep pushing the buttons that, you know, hit them as competitors, that we are a competitive outfit, and we want to rise above the weirdness of the Welsh political rugby world and just be what we are on a firm footing.
Griff, another sort of matter that came to the fore this week, Warren's comments about regional rugby not preparing players adequately for the step up to Test rugby. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there's got to be some merit to the comments when you look at, you know, the Super Rugby stats in terms of ball in play. You know, they're obviously something that strikes a chord with Warren, because he knows at that level it clearly does make a massive difference to the intensity they play at. And you could argue across the course of a Rabo season, we do get games that lack ball in play time, and that's, let's be honest, sometimes down to us, sometimes down to officials. You know, with certain officials the ball in play time goes dramatically down, and that is really frustrating around how we want to prepare, because we do prepare the side to try and build large ball in play sides. Believe it or not, we are, you know, a side that tends to do that. But we're also mindful we have to manage a 10, 11-month season sometimes, and obviously Super Rugby hasn't got those calendar demands. So we're always deviating between competitions, you know, and trying to often create our own intensity, but we've got to also manage a training load across 40 plus weeks of the season. So, you know, we can't keep doing that to players, and you know, perhaps we've got to continue to try and working together with the Welsh camp to find the best fit. So I can see some merit in it around the league. I think, you know, the league's got a lot going for it, but I can't argue that sometimes you get games that do die on their feet. We've got to try and snap that cycle, and we try our damnedest to do so, especially around the Rabo games.
I guess the Irish are managing to sneak the odd win over South Africa and Scotland indeed, and Australia. So, you know, it kind of weakens the argument a little bit.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, I think perhaps, and obviously some different contractual situations may help there. So I'm not so sure, but you know, it is sometimes just those moments. I guess it's funny. We play Ulster in the last block of Rabo games before Europe, and it was a poor game. You know, and you know, obviously the last 30 minutes we were architects of our own downfall, but it's a game that died on its feet, and then we couldn't take any momentum into the Leinster game the following week. You know, however, you flip that, and Ulster suddenly do manage to just flick a switch in terms of going into European competitions, which I still think are, you know, a good little preparation tool for international rugby.
I'm surprised Dan wasn't involved against South Africa, given he played the last 7 and he started the season quite well for you.
Oh, from my biased perspective, yeah, of course I could. Yeah, as I said, I've never had anything but, you know, top performances from Dan, and he's been really consistent for us. And he just obviously finished in the shirt in the Six Nations and did well there. However, you're also talking about competition for places and another 10 who, you know, stood up really well for, certainly for Gats in the past. So, you know, I think it was a 50-50, and this week it came down on the wrong side for Dan.